This should go relatively quickly. You just want to dust the area. We don't need this in here. But I do want to paint this out here. Just light dusting. You don't want it to drip. And get on the underside, come up from below, get all around your corners, or it's going to have like a shadow. Okay, good. Now, some of you might be thinking, this is really cool because it's in aluminum. Well, I've been thinking about it, and I think I'm gonna paint this a slightly different color. It's gonna stick out like a sore thumb, being in silver. So I'm gonna go ahead and prime this. Normally, what you want to use is there's a special aluminum primer that you can use. I buff the surface out. If you rough up the surface enough and make sure it's free of oil and grease, you shouldn't have any problems with it. So I'm going to go. Now, Sharpie does not like the cover at all. So the primer probably will separate on this. But I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway so you can see what will happen to it, if anything will happen to it. I hope it does. But we'll prime this out. Sharpie will show through just about anything, but this is black, so usually that's okay. We get the bottom. It's all in your prep. It's like your dad always said, you know, prime the garage door before you paint it. You know, you want to prep your surface to make sure that that your paint sticks real good to it, or people pick up the stuff and the paint's going to flake off of it. Okay. Once it's dry, take it off. Now with the black, you can see where the problem spots are. It's still not all the way dry, but I can see where the problem spots are. So what I want to do is, once you get a coat of primer on it, you can evaluate where the bad spots are and go back in and do some filling. So like along here. This stuff does shrink a little bit, so. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to prep it for the next phase, which is texture separation. I want to separate the textures from each other. This is not so much a color thing, but more of I want to give each piece its own material. like different types of metals. So that's where I'm going to use the Hammerite as a base. All right, now it is gloss and it will want to be buffed out, but what I want to do is I'm going to tape out the areas that I want to just be Hammerite. Inside corners and stuff like that, you can force your tape down into it and then go back in with a razor blade and follow the contour similar to this. Now this whole cowling here is I want that to be a different material too. So I tape that all off. It gets a little tricky in through here, but you can lay it out in sections, so you can pre-cut. You just feel where your seam is. Pre-score that area, and then you can drop it into that zone. Now this, I don't want to paint this, but I want that painted. So what I'm going to do is just separate that from this. Hammerite's got a kind of a thickness to it, so you don't want to get it on spots that are mechanical or things that move, because it'll just create a buildup there that you really don't want. So where this piece slides on, I want to keep that nice and clean. First, we're going to do is texture, and then we'll have to do another separation for the different paints. So I'm going to keep the handle the same, probably do a brush up on that. The clip, let's see, before we paint this, I have to knock down this this sand, this spot filler here that we just put in. And Normally you want to sand it down at least 220, but because this is going to get a Hammerite finish on it, and I don't want that to get covered. So, because it's going to get a logo on it. So that gets cut out. You just put your tape on and then kind of run your finger around the edge so you know where the stop is. And I think that this area would probably get filled in by the texture. So I probably want to tape that off too. You can take paper, newspaper, whatever. You're going to mask off the areas that you don't want the paint to get on. So for this, we can just use standard tape. It's going to go tape on top of tape. The Hammerite only works in a spray form. So you can't really put it on with a brush. They do make Hammerite in a can, but I found it doesn't really give it the same effect. All right. Now these areas are going to be green, but we're going to start out. I've just got this bronze Hammerite. With the Hammerite, make sure that you shake it up really, really well. Get your Hammerite shaken up really good. And what you want to do is lay on a fairly decent coat of it, which this is very thick and chunky. So you kind of want to lay it on a little thick, but not too thick where it runs. See, it'll start to separate. You can start, I don't know if you can catch that texture on there, but it's kind of a bumpy metallic kind of a texture, which is very cool, I think. Don't forget your corners, your edges. Careful when you're doing your edges because you might put excessive amount on the top surface. Usually better to spray the edges first. The Hammerite dries pretty quick. So, but to speed up the process here, we're going to use the hair dryer. Now you don't want to push it around too much because if you put the hair dryer too close to it, it'll push the material around when it's still wet. So you want to kind of be a little gentle with it. Now, when I was talking about before, by covering up some of the silver, we can replace it with our own silver. We don't necessarily have to be constrained to the types of material that we use. It's usually good to base everything out and then bring it back up, unless you're doing like a finished piece where it's actually chrome or something like that. It's usually a good thing to. I think we might even do this in Hammerite. I liked it. I like this piece. I think it might be kind of cool in Hammerite. So what we want to do is just tape off a section here. I want to tape off the black rubber in the back. So I'm going to kind of tape this off. That's cool. I'm going to hang this off stage. I'll be back. That color's kind of cool, but that isn't the color that I want. That's not what's in the design. I want that texture, though. So what I'm going to do is leave a little bit of that color in there by taking this. Is it this? This is darker. I guess that is it. If you're not sure, test first. Test a little section first, or test a piece of on the paper here. See if you like the color. Yeah, that's kind of cool. That's a military tone. This is going to be like a military version. So what we want to do is we'll lightly dust this. And it still has the texture to it. It doesn't have to be 100% totally covered, because you kind of want it to look. I want it to look a little grungy and beat up. So. Because I like my stuff being a little grungy and beat up. It looks a little bit more real. Okay, we got the Hammerite on there. We want to let it sit for a good long time because the paint on top of the Hammerite wants to bond to it, or else when I put the tape on it again, it's going to peel off, and I don't want to do that. So we're going to the bar. We'll be back later.